Oh, God, it's moving right towards you. Move! Get out of there! Moving towards you! Move! Down! Move down! Move down! Get out! Oh, no, not that way! The other way, God!
The original Gears of War was a masterclass of tactical third-person shooters, slow-paced, atmospheric horror, and war that set the template for what was to come, while crafting a solid, self-contained, character-driven story. The plot centers around a world attacked from mysterious underground humanoids and monsters who call themselves the Locust Horde, and it is up to you to fight your way out of the nightmare and turn the tide of war. The primary focus of the game is Marcus Phoenix, a professional soldier who gets reinstated into the military after spending 4 years in prison for insubordination and treason. He gets rescued by his best friend Dominic Santiago and takes him to meet a squad called Delta to seek and obtain a device that will map the caverns which the Locust inhabit and destroy their hollow tunnel networks once and for all. The game was a huge hit, and it went on to become one of the best video games ever made, as well as rounding out the 7th generation of gaming in very satisfying fashion. With the Gears of War license bought and now under full control by Microsoft, following the tremendous success the series had accomplished under the tenure of Epic Games, Microsoft didn't want to end it there. So they formed and created a new development team to make more. And with the interest and success at times of remastering beloved video games, for their first title, this new team wanted to give Gears of War a similar treatment, and in August 2015, a remake was announced, with the goal of accurately retaining the gameplay experience of the original while giving it a full contemporary updated visual presentation to the game's story. Gears of War Ultimate Edition is a remake that doesn't just neglect to improve on the original, it actually finds a way to make it worse. The end result was a shallow, lazy exploit rehash that removes a lot of elements and replaces them with nothing of value. It was a mix of individually good implements while telling a simplistic by-the-numbers story with very bland performances and presentation. And with that being said, allow me to illuminate you as we revisit Gears of War Ultimate Edition.
Illuminate.
So one of the strengths of Ultimate Edition is its gameplay, which shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone who played the original. Even though the original is fantastic with mechanics that felt great, varied, challenging, and fun, all of that is enhanced and much smoother. The original Gears of War was dark and gritty with a unique contrast designed in an honest, realistic light. It was grounded in minimalist lighting while only being visible when it mattered, with a visual tone that gave an immense sense of story, isolation, morose, and delivering a heavy experience. Ultimate Edition takes an opposite approach, making the visuals, the world, and environments lighter, prettier, and cleaner. Ultimate Edition looked good in its own right, but what was a unique fundamental that made the original and what the Gears of War series is meant to be all about is uninspiring and forgettable, and it tramples all over the original's art direction. Graphically, it's not bad, and it used the same engine as the original games updated combined with some features from an entirely new one, but by removing this and offering nothing meaningful in its place, it delivers an experience that's shallow, unimaginative, and lazy. On the other hand, the multiplayer component was an improvement, while adding things like extra maps, more game modes, dedicated servers, more options, and upgraded to running at 60 frames. The Gnasher shotgun, which is the staple choice for close-range combat in the franchise, often occasionally failed to register point-blank range, despite being exactly the same as it was in the original game, but overall it was an enjoyable experience. Also, some interesting, not very commonly known trivia in the Gears of War universe: Gears of War wasn't supposed to have any multiplayer component at all. Director Cliff Bleszinski and Epic Games wanted to make a single-player and co-op only focused game, similar to games like Capcom's Resident Evil and Konami's Metal Gear series, but decided to tack one on just for the hell of it in their final 2 weeks of development before the game launched. It was player host only with clunky performance, and to Epic Games' surprise, the multiplayer became very popular. Really impressive if you think about it. The biggest bone of contention with Gears of War Ultimate Edition is the story. Even though it was basically the same as the original, with the same plot points, levels, voice performances were mostly retained, and others like the score was left unchanged, the sense of intrigue, mystery, or feeling you're caught up in a dangerous or larger situation is non-existent. And this comes at the expense of direction and a little bit of writing quality. Now, when you think of good directing, you think about their strengths. Are they great with actors and can they bring out a great performance? Are they better at handling action scenes, or is spectacle their thing? I think if you take away the effects, the levels, and the sound, you're left with very pedestrian directing. And to explain what I mean, let's go through and check some scenes from the game. And a great example to start off is the tomb scene, where in the narrative the characters barricade the doors to stop the locusts from getting inside, only minutes later to find out they trapped themselves with a thing that to some is a nightmare and an incalculable terror. This moment in the original was iconic because players had never experienced or seen anything like it before. It was a moment of demanding of focus and locked into position in a one-take shot, refusing to let players escape the frame, while giving just enough information so it could focus more on the tension, along with a brief obscure glimpse laced in darkness and shadow of the lethal monster. Ultimate Edition directs it like a cheap action scene with constant quick cuts to anything they think is important. We need shots of the character standing, shot of characters when they talk, shot of character holding item for us to look at, shot of character talking to everyone, shot of them when they leave. What's this monster they're talking about? Usually when I think about great directing, I don't think about how boring every scene is and how much time is wasted. When the whole point of this moment was to craft a sense of foreboding, a slow pace, while withholding viewers' expectations, setting up the situation while crawling toward inevitable devastation, which as a result makes the moment when something does happen all the more powerful and sending a player's heart racing. Now it just rushes into it and rapidly unfolds with everything so literal and blatantly obvious. Another couple good moments is the voice of the Queen, which takes place in 2 brief scenes of the game. These moments sound simple at first glance, but they're actually potent and low-key haunting, while drawing the line between giving players enough information to understand the stakes involved, while holding back just enough to maintain the interest and mystery. Like, who is that voice, and why does it speak for the Locust? We don't know the answers to these higher questions because players don't need to know and likely don't want to know either, and are more interesting to ponder than answer. Revealing and explaining things, especially something like this, undermines the fundamental mystery. And it's like the makers put this prominent character into the game because they have all the franchise's assets available to them, so why not use this famous one here, right? But this was a very good and wise touch in the original, with little hints dropped throughout the game that added to the mystery. In spite of this moment and the finale of the battle, this war is just beginning, and whoever or whatever is out there that speaks for these locust monsters is not finished yet. The characterization, visual grammar, and the dark, gritty tone is entirely gone. This time it's rushed, more action, and spectacle focused. And this is shown off in all its glory with the 5 extensions, brand new chapters that were made and added for a Windows port of Gears of War in 2007, making their appearance for their first time on console. And despite being longer, they detract from the story considerably. It's just the characters playing hide and seek running from a brewmog with a few more additional objectives. They're very action-packed levels, the most in the entire game, and for what Ultimate Edition was, this was the best thing that it had to offer in terms of a remake. However, you could cut all of these additional chapters out and lose absolutely nothing of value. The original Gears of War game was smartly paced, focused, and tightly constructed, so the events in the narrative built logically on each other. Every action caused a reaction that impacted the flow of the story. Marcus and Delta Squad's launch of the Sonic Resonator resulted with the strongest Locust to hunt them down, forcing them into a race against time to reach their final objective. These extensions to the final act puts the plot to a complete standstill for unnecessary action set pieces, banter, over-the-top, and pointless expositions, when it should be getting straight to the point and not screwing around.
Listen up. We don't have much time. Get back there and make sure that APC works. We're going in. Start pulling the data.
I can't. The files are too big for this bandwidth.
Guys, there's still a war going on up here?
Cole and I'll go protect the APC while you wait for Jack. Keep them out of the house.
Brumac!
Go! The bomb is on a train.
Affirmative. Command identified an emulsion sinkhole as our primary target. The train's going to deliver the bomb. Your targeting data will do the rest.
Gotta be another way. Baird, my squad, my call.
Whatever, boss man.
Baird, you copy this?
Don't we have a train to catch?
Be advised, the train is accelerating to avoid capture. Your timetable just got a whole lot shorter.
Hey, stupid! You want some of this? Come and get me!
Think we can still make it in time?
If we don't, we're gonna spend the rest of our lives running from shit like this.
Marcus! Brumac's gone, thank you very much, and we're headed back to the power line.
Shit!
The Locusts are on board. They're throwing our guards onto the tracks.
Roger that.
But you'll need to turn off some panels up there.
What are we looking for?
Panels, you know, green glowing lights, valves. We'll need a full set of tools, enough rated cable to connect 2 transform blocks, an interrupt to manage levels.
What the hell? You mean we're stuck?
Yeah.
Marcus, we've lost control of the train. Now you'll have to catch it as it passes through Timgad Station.
Oh, for sake!
The original game was about a group of formidable characters fighting against monsters that you really feel could pick them apart, with characters you care about not because there's all that much to them, but instead because they work so well as a unit. While most of the time we are supposed to have some kind of idea of the Locust's whereabouts, having to search the frame and images to find them, where every death and kill comes in as a surprise. It was a special kind of video game, one that just works, thematically appropriate, funny when it needed to be, and designed to thrill, and it was a game that did a lot more with a lot less. And speaking of characters, many of them have gone through a bit of a makeover. The 4 main characters look like a bunch of clean-cut 25-year-olds that look like they stepped out of a fashion magazine rather than strong, older men working at the top of their game, and they all come across as flat, melodramatic, and low energy. For example, Damon Baird was a sarcastic, cool, resourceful asshole with strong personality and charisma that verbally sparred with the cast, commanding the screen, believing him to be the better, and shown to have a real professional rivalry going on with Marcus. But here he's presented like an annoyed, upset, stubborn at times child that doesn't want to do anything with the group or do what he has to. It makes sense for what Ultimate Edition was going for here, and it fits for the most part, but it makes his character feel mundane compared to his original. Anthony Carmine is barely even noticeable. He's just there doing what the script requires and dies in the most predictable, obvious staged fashion. Unlike his original portrayal where he had appropriate, legitimate place and position in the story, and making his death not only surprising, but also a little impactful. Marcus is more unmotivated and lightweight than previously. His agency is dialed down and he's not very interesting, despite mostly following the same script and having the same dialogue from the original. Marcus wasn't just the main protagonist of the story, the character was the story and he controlled it. Marcus is the master of the diegesis. The camera follows him, stays with him, looks where he looks, and guiding players through, making sure they have an understanding of where they are in the world. He was shown as driven, serious, sharp, unapologetic, gruff, and hardened by his tough life experiences, and doesn't mess around, showing no vulnerability playing it straight while transitioning into a leading man. His portrayal and execution here feels like he could be any generic soldier hero than a larger-than-life character, and Ultimate Edition removes concepts and a lot of the elements that made him engaging. All that said, Gears of War Ultimate Edition was a decent remake. It was a shame that it removed so many good elements, concepts, and attributes that made the original so unparalleled that turned it into a classic. It respected the work of the creators begun by Epic Games for the most part with a more expensive budget, but falls short as a title that expects to compete with the original and was a wasted opportunity. If any more of the original Gears of War games does get brought back, just preserve the original game, don't replace it or remove things left and right. Just give them the best gaming performance and audio experience enhancements. I don't believe anyone would have a problem with that. For those of you who are looking to dip your toes into the world of Gears of War, go play the original. The game still holds up even to this very day.